unfortunately, the oceans are dying. This is well understood by oceanographers. There's an assault on the oceans on every level by humanity right now. What are the consequences of eating meat, dairy products, and eggs on the health of ecosystems, especially aquatic ecosystems? And I think this is an enormously important question because the oceans are really the foundation of life on this earth. The zooplankton are creating most of the oxygen, for example, that we need to breathe besides the rainforest. What we're doing to the oceans is destroying the web of life here. The underlying idea, again, is that animal agriculture is enormously wasteful, so it takes huge quantities of land to grow all the corn, soy, wheat, alfalfa, and other feed grains that are fed to these animals. All these crops are sprayed with fertilizers, chemical fertilizers, nitrogen basically, which is taken from natural gas. And so this runoff from these fields, going down, for example, into the Mississippi River and other rivers, causes dead zones because the fertilizers cause algae blooms which suck the oxygen out of the water so that fish and other animals die. They can't live there. The size of dead zones on the planet has increased 1,000%. This is since 1950. I mean, the dead zones are just exploding because of animal agriculture. And the fish are dying not only from the pollution and the plastic, but also from overfishing. We have massive technology today, unfortunately, so the fish don't have a chance. Huge trawlers go along the bottom, go along the mid-range, go along the surface of the oceans. They can target large schools of fish. They bring up enormous quantities of fish. And so since the late 1980s, the actual fishing capacity of the oceans every year has increased, but the actual poundage of fish every year that's caught has decreased because the fish are gone. The fisheries are collapsing. And so now between half and 2/3 of the fish that we're eating are factory farmed. And so aquaculture is enormously abusive to the fish. They're hyper confined in small areas in water that's extremely polluted. I've seen these areas. There's onshore as well as offshore aquaculture operations. The onshore ones are swimming pools filled with fish where they're just crammed in and can barely move. And the water's black from the feces, and workers are dumping in antibiotics and other chemicals and hormones and so forth to try to keep the animals alive long enough so they can slaughter them. And the offshore aquaculture operations are also devastating with sea lice attacking the fish, enormous problems with chemicals and antibiotics and the escaping of animals and into the wild habitats and pollution of the oceans. And so aquaculture is utterly devastating. There's over 40 billion pounds of fish actually every year that is just discarded as bycatch. It's not non-target species. So animal agriculture and the fishing industry, as part of that, is just laying waste the oceans directly through overfishing and indirectly through habitat destruction. And also the fact that the appetite for fish is so enormous because we're not just catching fish to eat directly ourselves, we're also catching fish to feed to pigs and cows and chickens, because the scientists that study this have discovered long ago that if you enrich the feed of these animals with fish meal, they give more milk and more eggs and they fatten up, so it's profitable to do that. So the absolute appetite for fish is almost infinite, and the oceans cannot tolerate this. Fish concentrate toxins in their flesh hundreds of times or even millions of times more in their flesh than in the water around them because they're breathing water, and they're typically high on food chains. The ones that we're eating, like large tuna and salmon and other fish that are factory farmed or wild caught, concentrate enormous toxins. And so we see cancer rates exploding, we see violence and cruelty and devastation to the oceans and ecosystems, we see the collapse of the fisheries of the planet and of coral reefs. And again, the underlying driving force, if we look deeply into it, is when we take out our wallet and pay for meat, dairy products, and eggs. And so if we want to help our oceans if we want to try to reduce the amount of species extinction that's going on, because we're losing, literally we don't know how many hundreds or thousands of species every day are going extinct. So we can make a positive difference. The most important thing we can do is to make an effort to understand the consequences of our food choices and bring our lives into alignment with this understanding.